You know, I think it's funny. A lot of people don't give Microsoft the credit that they deserve. Yes, indeed, that is a natural fact. You can look at anything that's going on in the industry for a while now. I'll give you a good example. Right now, Baldur's Gate 3 is like the top 2 game, selling game on Xbox console. That story is run by one outlet. But, by the way, that was before this other story came out, which every outlet ran, where the Larian boss, who is the head of Larian Studios, who actually released Baldur's Gate 3, did a story where he said they weren't going to put Baldur's Gate 3 into Xbox Game Pass. Now, every major outlet ran that story about how the game wasn't going to go into Game Pass, and everybody was talking about it, trying to throw it up, saying, well, see, this developer doesn't like Game Pass. Look at this, right? This was exactly sort of my point when you talk about sort of an Xbox tax or whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to be smack dab in your face, but look at the two things. Why didn't every place run with Baldur's Gate 3 is the number one selling game on Xbox, but choose to instead rather say, hey, they confirm it's not coming to Game Pass, right? To me, it doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. So, when I look at this and I go, you know, what's going on with all of this stuff? You know, I say Microsoft doesn't really get their fair shake of this. Now, when it comes down to other things, you're starting to notice now that PlayStation is having an unusually bad year, and it's not really a secret anymore. You know, if Microsoft would have had this bad of a year, everybody would have been saying it's the end of Xbox. Are they going to close Xbox? Are they going to do this? Now, is Sony going to close PlayStation this year? No. But are they having an extremely rough time? Abso-freaking-lutely. And are they getting any of this stuff really brought up to anybody? No, they're not. But I think people are having more appreciation for what Xbox studios are doing now, thanks to this latest news. As we know, Naughty Dog canceled The Last of Us Online, or Factions 2, whatever you want to talk about. In a statement, the developer said that they realized that many people have been anticipating news around the project that they've been calling The Last of Us Online. There's no easy way to say it, but they made the incredibly difficult decision to stop development of the game. We know this news will be tough for many, especially our dedicated Last of Us Factions community, who've been following our multiplayer ambitions ardently. We were equally crushed at the studio as we were looking forward to putting it in your hands. We wanted to share with you some background on how we came to the decision. Sony reportedly scaled back the size of the Last of Us multiplayer game earlier the year, following an evaluation by the platform holder and newly acquired Bungie. According to Bloomberg report in May, the number of people working on the project have been reduced, partly as a result of Destiny studio feedback to the quality and viability, as Bungie raised questions about the Last of Us multiplayer project's ability to actually keep players engaged for long periods of time, which led to the reassessment, according to the claim. Shortly before the Bloomberg report's publication in May, Naughty Dog seemingly preempted the story with a statement in which it indicated the Last of Us multiplayer game would require more time in development. So there is that. People were trying to say, hey, you know, it's going to take more time in development. You know, like that's like pretty much a typical thing. They were trying to get out ahead of the bad news. Did it really work? Listen, I don't think so. I said it was canceled long ago. The statement confirmed the cancellation, that the multiplayer team has been in pre-production with the game since they were working on The Last of Us Part 2, which means they've been crafting this working on this game for probably 6-7 years, right? At some point of development, for 6 or 7 years they've been doing this game, right? Crazy to think about, in my opinion, that they've been working on this for that long. So it says, as the multiplayer team iterated on their concept for The Last of Us Online during their time, their vision crystallized and gameplay got more refined and satisfying, and we were enthusiastic about the direction they were heading. And ramping up to full production, the massive scope of our ambition later became clear. To release and support The Last of Us Online, we had to put all our studio resources behind supporting post-launch content for years to come, severely impacting development of future single-player games. So we had two paths in front of us: become a solely live service game studio, or continue to focus on single-player narrative games that have defined Naughty Dog's heritage. We are immensely proud of everyone at the studio that touched the project. The leanings and investments in technology from the game will carry into how we develop future projects, etc., etc. So, let me just say this. This is them passing the buck, so to speak, right? So basically, they knew they were making this huge, ambitious multiplayer game, and multiplayer games are nothing new. There's plenty of studios that have these. Also, I want to say it took them, if you look into what it took to make The Last of Us 2 itself, which is a single-player game, over, what did they say, something over 2,000, 3,000 workers, 20 different studios, support studios, and things like that. So support studios exist, right? They didn't necessarily, like, this is a cop-out. They weren't going to put this game out because it wasn't a good game, and we kind of all known that. So when you look at that and you go, okay, so, and then you see some people go, oh, well, I fully support this. I much prefer their single-player games. Listen, doesn't that make you appreciate a game and a team like 343? We all crapped on 343 for so long, but they put out a live service game that was, you know, obviously well received at launch, but then the first year content wasn't there, but they managed to do that. You look at other games that, you know, let's look at, for instance, Grounded. I know not a lot of you have Grounded, but would you believe Grounded was my most played game in 2023? Crazy, I know. Give it a chance if you haven't tried it. There's a nice single player campaign there, or you can play co-op as well, up to 4 people campaign, but it's really fun, and looks great, by the way. And so anyway, that a team of 10 put that service game together, and that game has had 15 million people play it. You know, again, so you can do both. You can have a support studio. Microsoft 343 has support studios helping with Halo. They've always had support studios helping with Halo. Same thing with Gears of War, right? Like, you go, oh, well, Gears of War, who does that? So, like, Epic Games, when they did the original Gears games, which is, you know, all well and fine, but you also had other studios doing maps and things like that. So it's not as cut and dry as they're trying to make it seem, but it really does make you seem like, you know, Microsoft is onto something special, and they have some really good things. Look at like Sea of Thieves. Sony desperately wants live service games to take off. Their bread and butter, of course. I buy PlayStation. Probably, if you own a PlayStation, probably you buy a PlayStation for those single player experiences, right? But here's the problem with single player experiences. They get money for them up front. Let's say a game costs $250 million to make. They get some millions up front when that goes on sale, and it's a big thing like Spider-Man 2 or whatever. But then after that initial month and a half, sales drop off the charts, right? Like drastically. Okay, you're only going to get those big booming sales right away. You might see some returns when you drop the price drastically or whatever. A lot of these games, when you see these big high numbers for them, oh, this game sold 20 million copies. They might have sold 20 million copies, but probably 10 million of them when the game was $15, right? So they're not making $70 times 20 million. You know what I mean? So this is basically the big problem that Sony faces. They want a game that has a steady flow of income throughout, like Sea of Thieves, or like you know, like some of these live service games, Apex Legends, Fortnite, constantly making money for long periods of time, right? That's what they're looking for. Naughty Dog, their best developer, clearly wasn't going to be able to do something like that, in my opinion. Obviously, you know, it was never going to happen. So I don't care what anybody says, that was never going to be a thing that was going to be able to happen. But anyway, it does make you, me anyway, sort of appreciate more of what Microsoft and their studios have been able to do. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Crap Gamer. This is Crap Gamer Reviews. Have a great holiday. Rack 'em up, Crap Gamer.